And when we fail, what matters most is how we move forward.
Set a course for love.
Ah, yes. One of your earth emotions.
Glad I found you.
Let's get married.
Delete the wife.
Welcome back to Deep Space Love, the Star Trek podcast where a married Trekkie couple explores love in all its forms throughout the final frontier. I'm Nicole, one of your hosts.
I'm Joe, one of your other hosts. Hey.
Joe, you're the only other host.
What's up?
Not much. You know, spring is in the air here in our part of the world, so I'm feeling better this week.
Yeah, it's actually, we had like a 60-degree swing from like super like dangerously cold days to just kind of like balmy like 40s and 50s.
Yeah, 40
like
degrees Fahrenheit feels tropical right now.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. But yeah, that's been fun.
Get typical Minnesotans talking about the weather.
That's very true. That's very true.
We have an exciting episode today.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We have a fun interview for you guys. We're talking with Johnny Kay of Chaotica Studios, who directed the recent independent Star Trek film Farragut Forward. We will definitely get into that. But before that, I do have a brief Trek check for y'all.
You do?
I do. One of the things that we talked about on the podcast in the past was Trek Talks 4, when we were talking to John Billingsley about that. It's a fundraiser, and we mentioned it was coming up, but it was delayed because of the wildfires out in California, unfortunately. That being said, they do have an official rescheduled date now, so if you are interested in looking into that, we'll link it in our show notes.
Absolutely.
But it will be it'll be April 5th, First Contact Day.
A good change in date.
A good change in date indeed, yeah. So that's coming up. Look for that coming out. The other kind of big Trek Check news and big just Star Trek news in general is in January, the Section 31 movie dropped finally. So we will have an episode next month coming out about that. We'll talk a lot about that. And there's kind of a romance element to it that we'll get into. But do you want to give us like a brief like one-sentence thought on the movie?
Oh, man. It was a wild ride, and we watched it twice, and I had different feelings both times. So I feel like if you want more, stay tuned or tune in next month. We'll have a special guest on that one too.
Yeah, it should be fun. Yeah, I feel the same way. I think that we waited a little bit. Some of the discourse kind of had like seeped into me before watching it, so I had some expectations, and so felt some ways the first time watching it, and then the second time I think it went into it with different expectations, and that was good. There's a lot to dig into with that one. I'm excited to get to that. But yeah, we'll save our thoughts for Section 31 next month. Look for that. Anyway, that is our Trek Check for today.
Computer, status report.
What the hell was that?
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, you're welcome. Do want to get into our episode. We're going to hop on over to our interview in just a few moments here, but I did want to kind of give some background. So what we're talking about is the film Farragut Forward, which was just released at the end of 2024. And Farragut Forward comes from the Starship Farragut web series, which began in 2005. It was an online web series following Captain Jack Carter and the crew of the USS Farragut set during the TOS era. They made 6 full-length episodes, live-action episodes. You can go watch them on YouTube. They made 3 vignettes. They made a comic book, and they made actually 2 animated episodes in the style of the animated series, which actually featured like the voices of Tim Russ and Chase Masterson, which is kind of cool. So they did a really interesting thing, making the sets of the old school Constitution class, like TOS style. They had those uniforms. And then they jumped to the animated series, the 70s a little bit. And so like they kind of went through those eras, and now with their latest film, Farragut Forward, which is definitely their highest produced thing that they've done yet, it's set during the TOS movie era. I think shortly after Star Trek V is what we talk about in the interview. So big jump in like production value, quality, uniforms, prop and set design, and it's just really striking to see what this team was able to accomplish, especially setting during that era, which, as we talk about, like, those uniforms are really hard to nail down, and they did such a good job with it. So the movie itself is sort of a revenge and rescue plot featuring the return of a mirror universe foe that the Farragut crew encounters during their initial run that is on YouTube currently. The foe, now working with a team of Klingons, captures the captain, Captain Carter, and the crew has to kind of go on a rescue mission to save him. It's about, I think, a little under an hour to try to stay within some of the guidelines that Paramount set forward for fan films. But I think it's really good. It's really charming. It's really delightful to just see something like this just crafted like purely from this like love standpoint of Star Trek. I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah, you kind of stole the words out of my mouth, coming from a place of love and for the franchise and for that time period as well. And like you said, high production value. It was a lot of fun. It squeezes a lot into the just under an hour of runtime that you mentioned. And it was really great to speak with a creator from behind the scenes, the director.
Yeah, that was really fun. We're hoping to stay in touch with this team a little bit. They have just begun production on the sequel to this film too, which I believe is a time travel plot. I'm excited to see more about that. There's an Indiegogo campaign I think they'll be launching soon. But for this episode, we talked with Johnny K, as I mentioned before. His studio, Chaotica Studios, has done some work in the horror realm, and they've done a little bit other work in fan films too, a Batman fan film. But this is one of their bigger ones right now, especially taking the Trek world by storm. Fan films have been around for so long with Star Trek.
It's really embedded in the franchise and in its culture.
It is, and I think it kind of comes back to like fan fiction, like even back in the early days. Like, it's so interesting to see like fans can just find themselves in these stories and make stories within this world, and to see what they can come up with. Like, some of the fan films are certainly very amateur, but there's like heart, that's always just there, and it's really cool to see. And this was really a fun one to see that played out, I think.
Yeah, I feel like, not that, anytime you're creating content and you're not, like getting paid to do it. It's always a labor of love. Not to say that you can't earn money and make amazing art, but just have to point that out,
Yeah. So anyway, with that being said, shall we hop on over?
Yes, please enjoy our interview with Johnny K from Chaotica Studios.
All right, Johnny K, welcome to Deep Space Love.
Welcome.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're super happy to have you on. You are creator of Chaotica Studios and the director of the recent Farragut Forward film. So we're really excited to dig into Farragut Forward. But before we dig into that, we always have some brand new guest questions for people who are new to the podcast. I'll let Nicole take that away.
So to start things out, could you share a bit of your background on why you love Star Trek, and which iteration are you drawn to the most and why?
Yeah, that changed throughout my life, right? So, yeah, I grew up in the 80s, was never big on the original series, grew up with Next Generation. And, like probably most kids that watch Next Generation, the thought that Gene Roddenberry was promising that tomorrow would be better, I completely missed that. I just wanted to see battle scenes with like the Borg and the Romulans. I wanted to see fights. So Gene's message was lost on me for a little while, but I grew up on Next Generation, loved it. Next Gen was my favorite for most of my life until this magical thing called Netflix came around, and it started streaming things like Deep Space Nine. And then you could just marathon watch shows that you've been meaning to watch and finish, and you never did. So I went from being a diehard TNG fan until I actually finished Deep Space Nine. And at the end of DS9, I said, you know what? That was a damn near perfect TV show. Not just a good Star Trek show, but just a good TV show. And everything about DS9, as a writer, as a filmmaker, as just a Star Trek fan, DS9 was the one that said, all right, this is going to be your new favorite Star Trek from now on. So I became a DS9 convert. And I think more people would be if they actually got past the first or second season. Like, you have to get into the war, finish the war, and then see how that show ends. And I think it would become more people's favorite Star Trek show. So I'm a DS9 guy for sure now.
Awesome. Love that. Um, so which Star Trek character would you you can answer this however you want. Like, would people answer this? I mean, if you want to take it down like a romantic like spin on it, or just a platonic, like grab a coffee or, grab a pint or something with uh not necessarily your favorite character, although if it's also your favorite character, but we just sort of like to try and change it up. Like, if you could like go on a date of some kind with a Star Trek character, who would that be and why?
Man, like romantic wise, I mean, it's got to be Jadzia, right? Like Jadzia is, she's just awesome, So
Yeah.
there's a lot like there'd never be a dull moment with Jadzia. She's always got something to talk about because she's lived a bunch of lives, right?
For
So
sure.
I dig Jadzia for sure. If it was a platonic bromance thing, I want to say Worf because I love Worf, but I feel like hanging out with Worf could kind of go either way. So maybe I'll say Chief O'Brien. O'Brien might be a better guy to kick back and have a beer with. Maybe Worf's maybe a little more volatile.
Worf's just intense.
Worf
Yeah.
is Worf. He'd have to maybe Worf for like a double date with Jadzia, like go on a
Yeah.
double date. Then he'd be tempered a little bit by her.
Yeah, I feel like Chief O'Brien would be the same, like every night, and I feel like
Yeah.
you don't know what Worf you're going to get. So
Yeah.
O'Brien, Chief,
I mean, that was O'Brien in the show, though.
That's true.
Always
Yeah.
up at the bar
That's true.
next to Morn.
Oh, next to Morn, yeah. So all right, let's dig into like your stuff. Like, so Chaotica Studios, which produced the Farragut Forward, which we'll be getting into, award-winning independent film studio based out of Washington, D.C. You produced a short horror film, The Killer of Grassy Ridge. You also did the Batman prequel film, The Oath, right, to the Tim Burton's Batman. Could you just share about your background with like filmmaking in general? What brought you to creating Chaotica, and then like you producing some independent film, but then also some like kind of fan film areas too? What brought you to those avenues?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I started working on camera years ago. Did a lot of stuff just as an extra, just as working background. But it was just kind of an excuse to get on Hollywood sets and just kind of see how they work. So I did some of that many, many, many years ago. As my day job would have it, I ended up actually filming some stuff for my job. I'm a government contractor, government consultant. We did some video stuff for a while, which I just loved being a part of that because, again, it got me back on set. It kind of bridged the gap between my day job and then also my creative side, right? And be able to kind of join those two things together. So I kind of got bitten by the film bug way back then. Life gets in the way. I'd always wanted to be a filmmaker, and I'd always wanted to call myself a filmmaker anyway. I didn't care if I made a film. I just wanted the title. But I just came up with all these excuses. Where do you start? Like, my camera wasn't good enough. I didn't know any actors. Where do you really begin? So I just kind of never really pursued that. And then in 2019, I got a phone call to come down to Richmond where they were filming a Walking Dead spinoff series, and they were looking for martial artists. And they found me in a database of extras, and it said somewhere in my actor resume that I had a martial arts background. And they said, "You want to come down and do a day or two on Walking Dead?" And I said, "Sure, why not? Just it's a fun day." And it ended up being the pilot of that series, so it was the first episode. And I said, "Sure, let's go do this." So went down there, did very little work on that show, met some great people, but it turned me on to a different show with Ethan Hawke that was filming on the other side of town called The Good Lord Bird. And it was Ethan Hawke playing John Brown, leading up to the events of Harper's Ferry and all that right before the Civil War. And I did a lot of time on that show and probably worked, I don't know, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. So we were on set every single day. And what I learned on the set of that show, met a lot of great people too. And what I learned on that show was, if you just kind of keep your mouth shut, if you do your job, do what you're there to do, but also maybe just sit in the corner and observe, you could really pick up some tips. This is how films are made. So that kind of became my own little film school. And I was, kind of augmenting what I was seeing at night, watching YouTube videos. Okay, why did they do it like this? Why did they light it this way? I just had questions, and I was just naturally curious about it. So I just spent a little more time on that. And by the time I got out of that show, I said, you know what? I've got an idea for a little short film. If I can make it, it's just going to be a challenge to myself. Let me just see if I can do it. And if I make it and it's awful, I never have to show it to anybody, but let me just try, because I've been saying it for years. And that became The Killer of Grassy Ridge. So that was my first indie film that I put out in early 2020. I was proud of it. Went on YouTube. Great. and then what happened next, I didn't expect. It got picked up in the film festival world, and it hit like 50 festivals all over the world. We won like crazy stuff that nobody's debut short film should win. Like whose first movie wins stuff, right? So that was a huge surprise. And then after that, it was like a crack addiction. I'm like, why am I not making one of these like once a year, right? Because I love working on set. I actually love pre-production. I love planning. I just love kind of everything that goes into film and just the whole process and working with other people, the music, all that. So got bitten by all that. Had a lot of original ideas and still do. And at some point, I had the idea to kind of dip my toe into the fan film world, which I said I would never really do. And now here we are in 2025, and then fan films are all I've done for the last 3 years. I've done 3 in a row, if you count Farragut, our prologue, and then The Oath, which is our Batman film, and then Farragut Forward. So yeah, with me, it kind of started off as just a challenge and a hobby, and it ultimately grew into a business, which is Chaotica Studios. And I opened that up. Really, well, one, it makes the business side of things easier with insurance and production insurance, all the paperwork and stuff like that. It just makes life easier that way. But it also helps just social media wise. I see these guys who are making films and they set up a brand new Facebook page for every movie, a brand new Instagram account, a brand new website for every single movie they do. And I'm like, bro, I'm way too lazy for that. Like, I want to set up like a parent thing and then release all our movies under that, and that way you get to pick up your followers and like take them with you from project to project. You don't have to restart everything every time you make a movie. So kind of the business side of it was born more out of laziness than anything else. I just didn't have the energy to create a Facebook page for every movie I make. And yeah, here we are like 6 years later, and still got lots of ideas, still got other stuff in pre-production right now. And we just finished up, as just put out Farragut Forward back in October. And that was a pretty serious labor of love that was all consuming for a lot of people for a couple years. And I'm glad it's out and folks are enjoying it. So
Amazing.
Yeah, so digging into Farragut Forward, so that's a continuation of the Starship Farragut web series that took place during your favorite, the original series era, and takes place also during the movie era of TOS. Could you give us a brief overview of like what Farragut Forward is about? Like, if you were to provide the snapshot for listeners who haven't seen it yet, how would you describe it?
Yeah, it's a rescue mission. That's the elevator pitch. It's definitely a rescue mission. And yeah, like you just said, it's the kind of the first step into the Monster Maroon, Wrath of Khan, Undiscovered Country era of Star Trek. It's their first step of the Starship Farragut crew who have been making YouTube fan films for 20 years. Their fan films on YouTube go back to 2005, which I think is the year YouTube came to us, right? So they've been doing this for 20 years. Yeah. So these characters have been around 20 years. And I wasn't involved with it until Farragut Forward. But for me, it was just kind of a challenge to, okay, let's use those legacy characters, those legacy relationships, and use that as a launch pad to kind of jump into a more cinematic movie-esque episode of Farragut. So that's kind of where Farragut Forward came from. And that's, John Broughton, who's executive producer on Farragut Forward, also plays Captain Carter in the whole Starship Farragut series. Paul Sieber, Mike Bednar, Holly Bednar, and more. All these folks have been doing this stuff together for 20 years. And I'm kind of the guy that came along a little later in the process to kind of help put the movie spin on it. But yeah, they're a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, that kind of seemed like that was the case.
Yeah, they definitely had. I mean, the screen chemistry was evident. I feel like in the film for sure. That's kind of where I was going to go next. Though, is like how did you guys get connected to this series?
Yeah, John and I know each other. We've been friends for over 10 years, I guess. And he actually came over to the premiere party for The Killer of Grassy Ridge when we released it. And I guess the gears started turning in his head. Wow, maybe I'll get Johnny to direct a Farragut episode at some point. And John had taken a break from Star Trek fan films for a long time. He had done the Starship Farragut original series stuff for a long time, kind of put all that to the side for a while. And then when he wanted to come back to it, he wanted to, come into the movie era, the Monster Maroon era with the updated uniforms and do all that. And the timing was really just right, because when he started having that idea to come back and make Farragut Forward in the movie era, I was kind of right there, and I just made my first film. And then John was also a crew on the Oath, so he was on the set with us when we did the Batman film, and got a little more, I guess, exposure to how I shoot things and do things on set. And yeah, he offered me the gig. He said, "You want to come in and direct Farragut Forward?" And if it was set in the '60s original series era, I would have said, "I'm not your guy. That's just not my thing. That's not my aesthetic. Other people can do that better than me." And he said, "No, this is going to be movie era, and it's going to be dark, and it's going to be gritty, and it's going to be just it's not going to be your typical fan film." And I saw the first draft of the script, and I said, "Yeah," I saw it right away. I said, "Yeah, I can see exactly what this is going to be. And if we do it right, this will be maybe, a step beyond what most fan films maybe look like and feel like." And I just kind of got that the very first time I read the rough draft of the script. So John knew exactly how to sink his hooks into me and get me on board.
Yeah, you kind of alluded to, I mean, not just this crew, but Star Trek as a franchise has had a very strong and robust community of fan film creators, which is, kind of stemmed back all the way to the 60s, some might say. So did you feel welcome, coming into that space as kind of a creator that wasn't already in that space? Were there any other fan films that you checked out in preparation for this one, or just kind of your own
Very
vision?
little. Yeah, very little, to be honest. I did my homework with the Starship Farragut stuff. I did not watch every single minute of every single episode. But John gave me a cheat sheet and said, here's the top 3, 4, or 5 that you definitely need to see to get an idea of the characters, which I appreciated. And I did watch those. Yeah, I really didn't look at many of the other fan films. Like I said, I'm kind of an outsider to the fan film world. It was something I never knew much about. I would see some here and there, and a lot of, and I'm not knocking anybody because everybody has different budgets, different skill sets, all that. But a lot of the fan films I'd seen way back when, they looked like fan films. They looked like they were made with the best of intentions, but they were shot in a backyard. You could see the dog in the corner or something, and that was always kind of the stigma that fan films had with me, is like, that's really ultra, ultra, ultra low budget. Let's just get some buddies and go to the backyard and turn the camera on and see what happens. And when I started watching some of the Farragut stuff, I thought, oh wow, no, these guys have spent years building these sets, and those are Hollywood quality sets on the original show, on the original Starship Farragut show, and then the stuff that those guys made for Farragut Forward. I mean, I would put that right up with anything going on in Hollywood. And for about a $50,000 budget, which is what we had, and the majority of that went into set construction. Those fan films turned out to be something a lot more in depth and a lot more professional than what I expected to be. And yeah, you asked if I felt welcome. Absolutely. Especially the cast and the crew. I mean, that's a legacy crew that have worked together a long time. And then it actually made my job a lot easier with the actors, because, these guys have been playing these same characters for 20 years, right? So here I come in as a new director. Like, what am I going to say to Holly Bednar about how she should play Commander Smithfield? Like, she's played Commander Smithfield for 20 years. Like, what am I going to say? And I kind of wonder, not to compare myself to Nick Meyer, but I almost wonder if Nick Meyer had a similar experience with Wrath of Khan, because when he walked into that room, like, what's he going to say to Shatner about, Kirk, or what's he going to say to Nimoy about Spock? They've played these characters for so many years already. I can't help but think he probably had a similar experience.
It's a good way to put it. Yeah, I like that.
It's a great segue.
Yeah. With regards to the actual film itself, so we watched it, and by the way, loved it. Like, it was super fun to watch. I was trying to watch it with sort of like my podcaster eye, like, what questions am I going to ask, but I felt like you mentioned Wrath of Khan. There's definitely thematic ties to Wrath of Khan, but I felt like there's a little bit almost to Search for Spock as well. Cause you have the story of the revenge, but then there's also the element of going outside of Starfleet to go rescue somebody that's lost. And that's kind of got some Search for Spock vibes, which I thought was kind of cool. But my question, so perhaps this is a directing and writing question, but maybe as a director, how do you go about the balance of telling this fresh kind of unique story, but also paying homage to those older films or those older themes?
Yeah, it was tough. We just knew coming in that we were going to be on a fixed budget. Like, we had to tamper down all our ideas, and all the great ideas in the world don't mean much when you can't afford them, right? They're just ideas. So when the script really became a shooting script, when we became realistic with what we would be able to have for sets and what we'd be able to have for locations, that really kind of helped direct the story. The story itself was always a very fast paced, straightforward rescue mission, right? And a lot of that, honestly, was driven by the fan film guidelines that Paramount put out, because they do have some pretty and their guidelines. Luckily, they're not rules, but they're guidelines. But they do have some input on how long your movie can be, right? And we actually kind of stepped aside of that one. We paid attention to the important guidelines like money and fundraising and not paying anybody, but the one about, do we really want to take our 52-page script and chop it down to a 25-page script just to abide by a guideline that may or may not be enforced? So we did a little bit of soul searching with that. But yeah, the story itself had kind of always been there just from the beginning. It's really interesting to hear you say the Star Trek 3. You got the Star Trek 3 vibe from that. I like that. I don't know that the 3 vibe was intentional specifically. It was more about just showing, particularly to the alien characters in the film. And by that, I mean Brent Elders, who played Lieutenant Tyria, the Vulcan science officer, and then also William J., who played Koroth, the Klingon. Both of those characters in our short little 50-minute movie question why in the world, this group of people is risking everything to go after their friends, right? And that's the theme of the whole movie, is that when you're that tight and you know each other that well, nothing's going to stop you from from going after, whether you're breaking the rules or not. You're gonna go get your friends back and get your shipmates back. So it's pretty interesting to hear you draw a Star Trek 3 conclusion there. I probably should have seen that one coming, but I don't think I've ever thought of it that way. But yeah, you're dead on with that.
It's very Star Trek-y. I mean, it's a recurring theme, I think. So it's great. It fits right in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, in terms of I don't know that we did anything new story-wise. I mean, we were very bound a little bit by the confines of the duration, right? We couldn't make a 90-minute full motion picture, right? We probably could have done that if we wanted to stretch the thing out and actually make it a full feature. But again, we were trying to be respectful of those guidelines. We knew we were already going to be stepping past the duration that Paramount wanted us to stick to. So we really didn't want to push that with a 90-minute fan film. So the story itself, I mean, we didn't have much time to do a lot of, recapping or summarizing Starship Farragut episodes. We were just in it from minute one. Like, you're in it, you got to go. And you got to keep going. And my take on it, I had some friends who saw it, and they know nothing about Starship Farragut, and they told me afterwards, "Oh yeah, I love the movie, but I wish I had a little more on these characters. I wish I knew more about it going in." And my answer to that was, brother, there's 20 years of YouTube videos out there. Like, I did not have time in our movie to summarize 20 years of YouTube, fan series. Like, go back and watch it. Like, if you liked it, if you liked the characters, go back and watch the Starship Farragut stuff, So yeah, our story was kind of intentionally lean and mean.
Was there any other Trek stories that you guys drew influence from in making this? Either from like kind of the Farragut crew themselves, or from your standpoint as coming in as, it's like a director kind of coming into this group?
Yeah, the Wrath of Khan thing is kind of there because it's a revenge thing. Talk to Paul Sieber sometime. Paul Sieber played Prescott, and he'll he's full of reasons why he's a great guy, and he was a co-writer on the script as well. But he will talk to you all day about how he didn't want to make this as a Wrath of Khan clone, right? Mm-hmm. There was more to it, Prescott's obsession and all that. Wrath of Khan is probably the closest, I guess. Unlike Wrath of Khan, we wanted to get our protagonist and our antagonist in an actual fist fight at the end of the movie, and we did manage to do that.
Oh yeah.
And we also have a space battle going on simultaneously. So yeah, I'd say probably Wrath of Khan is kind of the biggest inspiration in terms of the story and the pacing and that type of stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, that final sequence of like the dual space battle and fighting on the planet was really fun. It was fun to see some of the Easter eggs, like the Marta character from Star Trek 6.
Yeah,
that was kind of a fun thing to see. But yeah, all of that was great, and it's the ambition behind it all. Like you mentioned, this being a big labor of love is evident, but like setting it during that movie era, I feel like that's such a big thing, because I feel like those classic monster maroons, like you're talking about, like I don't feel like many. It's a challenge. Like there's so many moving parts to those uniforms that I feel like no one's really been able to get it quite right. It's just tough for fan film creators to replicate, like funding wise or anything like that. But with you guys, like you guys got it. Like it's just so cool. Setting this, like I think I looking at the star date and look at another interview you did was like right after Star Trek V, I believe. Was there any like intention of like why it was set right there?
Yeah, production design.
Yeah, just that.
Just what the bridge looked like. We,
Yeah.
as you can imagine, when we were in pre-production, literally just sitting down with the set guys, talking about, okay, we have some options here. What do we want our bridge to look like? Do we want it to look like the Enterprise bridge from Wrath of Khan, or do we want it to look like the Enterprise bridge from Star Trek Six? Because when you go watch those back to back, those are very, very different production designs, right? Very different everything. The Wrath of Khan stuff, Wrath of Khan came out in 82, so they probably filmed it in 81. That's still analog knobs. And, you watch, and that's what Nick Meyer wanted. He wanted it to feel like a submarine, right? So that you have all these very physical knobs and gizmos, and that stuff is, you have to replicate that. You have to fabricate all those little pieces, right? On the other side of that, by the time Undiscovered Country came out, Next Generation, was already out, had already been out 3 or 4 years, something like that. They had pioneered those okudograms, right, which are the really smooth, slick looking touchscreen interfaces, and then that's what they use for Star Trek Six and probably Star Trek Five too, and maybe even Four. Now that I think about it, it was purely a production design decision. Do we want to have clunky knobs from 1981, or do we want to have sleek touchscreen stuff? And I called it future proofing, right? Because we were already talking back then, how many more of these are you going to do? Do you want to, and John wants to end up doing a trilogy, and they're filming the second one now. We can talk about that in a little bit, but we kind of future proof those sets, because if we had made the decision, no, we just want to set this literally at the Wrath of Khan era, we would have been stuck with those 1981 buttons and gizmos through 3 different movies, right? So I made the argument. I'm like, I think we should future proof it. Let's make it look slick. And in my opinion, like Star Trek Six, I mean, those Star Trek Six sets, they're not dated at all. Watch that movie now. I think it looks just as good as any other sci-fi franchise that's out now. Just because the production design was that slick. So yeah, setting it in that specific era. I think the star date that we mentioned at the end of Farragut Forward lines right up with Star Trek Five, right around there. And of course, we had Martia in ours, so we know it's before Star Trek Six. But the production design, you can tell that it's later on in the movie era. And yeah, that was all driven by production and what we wanted our sets to look like.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I think I really like that choice. Like I like that answer too. Like and that design. The bridge design is cool. I remember always really liking in 5 and 6 the blue chairs too. I thought that was like a cool like just vibe of the bridge.
Yeah, and it gave the set guys. We had, as we had two different Starfleet ships in Farragut Forward, and there had to be a decision made there. How do we make these things look different? Because obviously they were shot on the same set. We couldn't build a new set for every ship, but we redressed the Farragut bridge, and yeah, the first thing we did was let's put on the salmon or pink colored chair covers for the Oberth class, because that's what it had in Star Trek 3, right? It was this kind of hideous pinkish seat cover. And it's funny because on the back end, we snuck out some kind of social media photos as we were making the film. And one of the first photos that went out was of the Oberth class bridge with that hideous pink. I call it hideous. It's just it's not my favorite color. It's weird pinky salmon, but social media broke when they saw that, like, oh, why did you go with pink seat covers? Blah, blah, blah. Of course, they didn't know that that's just one ship of others. And then by the time we get to see Farragut, it's got that nice Excelsior. I don't know if it's royal blue, but it's some type of beautiful blue. And yeah, I'm like you. I love that design aesthetic too. It's my favorite. So
yeah, it's cool. And just a quick aside, like I don't know if I might have had this in my notes later on, but like the fact that the hero ship is a Miranda class, so exciting to me. Like I love the Miranda class in Wrath of Khan. I wish we saw more of those. Like that was like right away when I saw that, I was like, yes, this movie is for me.
Yeah, and that speaks back. That wasn't my decision. That was a John Broughton and others before me decision. But yeah, that's that kind of speaks to their desire to make Farragut its own thing, right?
Yeah.
Farragut was never about recreating Star Trek or recreating Kirk, Spock, McCoy. Farragut was always about its own characters, its own adventures, its own ship. So, what better way to get away from kind of the typical Star Trek Enterprise stigma than just make your ship a Miranda class? Let's see something new. And I think we mentioned the crew complement in the movie. I think it's 220 something. It's actually stated in the movie. And yeah, at the end, spoiler, not everybody survives. And we had some long conversations about, wow, how many people do we kill off? Because if we kill off, you kill off 10 people out of 200, I mean, that's a sizable chunk of a small crew.
That's true.
Yeah, so there were a lot of little behind the scenes discussions like that as we were, every word in the script is in there for a reason, and every number has probably a long conversation that happened behind it before that number magically appeared on screen. So,
Well, we talked a lot about, mentioned the uniforms and how well those were, as Joe mentioned, that they can be complicated to put on screen, to say the least. But all the props and sets, like we were just talking about, are all like, truly movie quality and like brilliantly constructed. Was there anything like either a prop or a specific set that maybe was like either really impressed you or that you were really proud of that came together?
oh man, I mean, all of it. I mean, that's a terrible answer, but I mean, just as a Star Trek fan, just walking on those sets when they're finally lit up and ready to go. I mean, there's just it'll take your breath away because you're like, wow, this. If I could tell myself when I was 8 years old that I would be like standing on this set right now, getting ready to shoot a movie that I'm directing, like it was just it's everything, like all those sets. I mean, that was just so much work, and I know that's evident looking at it, but that was so much work that our set team put into all that stuff. The props, yeah, all the none of that stuff comes easy. None of that stuff is cheap. All that stuff takes a ton of time, and then everybody who worked on this production, we're all the most detail oriented like freaks possible. So I mean, I've seen some of the prop guys. They'll look at something that to me looks perfect, and it's not good enough. This is only 80% good, and in the trash it goes. And I'm like, no, save it. Any stuff that's not good enough for you, I want to blow up on screen. Like, give me some stunt phasers or something. But yeah, just
fair.
every piece of the prop stuff, the set stuff, every bit of it. If I had to pick one thing as a favorite, I mean, it's got to be the Farragut Bridge, right? I mean, that's the
Centerpiece.
the set. Yeah. I mean, and I guess it's important to note too, like that's the second to last thing that we shot because we wanted the set guys to be able to use all the other sets as kind of training wheels building up to that Starfleet bridge, right? So by the time we get to that, to shoot on that, like all the HDMI glitches with the monitors in the background, like all that's been worked out, right? Because we took what we learned shooting the Klingon sets and used all that. So we purposely saved the Starfleet Bridge as the next to last thing we shot. The very last thing we shot was the outdoor scene at night down on the planet with the fight and the extras. That's the very last thing we shot. But in terms of sets, shooting in the studio, yeah, the last thing we shot intentionally was that bridge, just so the set guys by that time had like a year and a half of lessons learned leading up to that, and it made it go a lot smoother.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
And I think you even sent these to me, but there are a ton of cool like behind the scenes like vignettes and like special features essentially that you would maybe watch on like a DVD extra or something that you guys have on your website, right?
Yeah, it's it's on YouTube. Yeah, so if you search YouTube for Farragut Forward, you'll see the film, and then you'll see all the behind the scenes stuff. Yeah, when I talked to John originally, we always knew the actual film itself would come out on his YouTube channel, which is the Farragut Films YouTube channel. And my humble request is I would love to have all the behind the scenes stuff on the Chaotica channel. And he was nice enough to agree with that. So yeah, all the behind the scenes stuff so far, and there's more coming, by the way. We've got a blooper reel coming that's not been put out yet, which is hilarious, by the way. And we've got a few other behind the scenes stuff coming up. But yeah, there's individual vignettes on just the costuming. There's a lot of stuff on the set construction. There's stuff on the Klingon set construction. There's stuff on makeup and effects. So yeah, and I'm a huge fan of behind the scenes DVD extras. Like that's how we grew up, right? You got to get the
Yep.
behind the scenes books. You got to watch all the special features on the DVDs. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, I got to have that for our movies too, because I love all that stuff. And also, I think it's helpful for other indie filmmakers. It just shows that you can do this stuff, right? It's not so far out of reach. It costs plenty of money, but it's not far out of reach. So I think sometimes it's helpful just to look behind the wizard's curtain and show people that this is how we did it, and it might help somebody else out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. I remember I think one of the first like videos you guys released when you were crowdfunding. I saw that. We actually watched that on our bigger TV over here. Because like, this is so cool. Like, we were really impressed with the effort. But like following along and seeing some of those vignettes as you guys were releasing them before the film came out too was really fun to watch some of that process. And it's clear with all the props and the sets and the uniforms, like how much work was actually put into this, and that's really admirable. Well, we talked about a lot of those like sets, props, and everything. But are there any like specifically small like Easter eggs or something that like fans should be on the lookout for? Like, or like, oh, this was like a era 2 phase. I don't know, like something weirdly specific like that.
There's I can't remember the phasers. My brain can only hold so much information, especially when we're working on set. If somebody comes up and says, "Hey, we're going to swap in the Star Trek 3 phaser for the Star Trek 2 phaser," like, I got a million other things I'm worried about. I don't care about the phaser. Figure that one out. So I can't remember about little things like phasers. Martia, you definitely mentioned that.
Yeah.
That was a big Easter egg that we wanted in there for sure. I mean, there's little goofy stuff. I know some of the Klingon. There's a scene where you can see some of the Klingon writing in the corridor, and it's right beside a button. And in Klingon, it says, "Don't press this button." It actually, so it's little stuff like that. We don't expect anybody to catch that. If you do catch that, you probably have too much time on your hands. But there's a lot of little things like that that were put in. There's probably some other stuff that I'm just blanking on right now.
Merits a rewatch.
Yeah, and I need to rewatch it. Probably it's actually been it's been what? When did it come out? 3 months ago, 4 months ago. So yeah, I've not seen it since the premiere party actually. And that was on the big screen. That was in a movie theater, and I've not seen it since that night. So,
which theater did you guys premiere it
at? We actually had a private party at Alamo Drafthouse.
Oh, cool! That's awesome.
So they got plenty of those here in the local DC area, and it's the same place I premiered The Oath, our Batman film. So I'd already had a real good working relationship with them, and kind of they knew what to expect from our crowd and stuff. So yeah, we had a real fun premiere party with it.
Awesome.
Well, we know you're not as involved in the upcoming sequel film, Farragut 2024, but do you have any insights on what's to come for these characters?
I do, but I would be killed if I said
okay.
So, yeah, no, I read the script. They sent me the script. I mean, probably almost a year ago, 8 months, a year ago, something like that. And I loved it. It's a very different film than Farragut Forward. I'll definitely say that. I know John Broughton is looking at a trilogy, and part of making a trilogy is you want the middle one. You can't have them all at the same volume, right? You want different volumes to make it a little more dynamic. So I know the second one is going to be a very different movie with the hope that the third one would then be a huge grand finale. So I won't spoil any of that with it, but I did read the script. I did like it very much. Written by a guy named Jim Brooks, who's a super, super talented guy. And I read it, enjoyed it. They asked me for a couple things, feedback wise. I gave them very small things, just stuff that might be interesting, might season it up a little bit, but otherwise, no, I will be first in line to see Farragut 2024, directed by a great guy too, Josh Irwin, who is no stranger to Star Trek fan films. That guy cranks out Star Trek fan films like nobody's business. He is, I don't even know when he sleeps, but that is a very, very prolific guy. And he's the director for Farragut 2024, and he's, great guy. Just a really good guy. And I can't wait to see what those guys are going to come out with.
Cool. So you did mention a little bit with Farragut Forward, like the crowdfund or the guidelines, but you guys did crowdfunding for it too, right?
Mm-hmm. We did.
Was there any challenges you guys met with crowdfunding at all, or no?
Honestly, no. There's always that just panic. Are we gonna set a $30,000 goal and then raise $5 and embarrass ourselves. There's always that kind of
Yeah.
panic because you never really know, and there's never a good time to crowdfund. It's either
Yeah.
the holidays or it's the tax season or it's the middle of summer or it's summer vacation time. Like there's never a good time to crowdfund. There's always something else going on. And we also, like, we know, like, it's tough times for plenty of people out there. Like there's other worthy causes to give your money to, instead of a Star Trek fan film. So we were realistic with that too. Challenges, I don't know that we really had any. We definitely exceeded our goal, and we stopped short. The fan film guidelines limit you to $50,000 of crowdfunding, and we intentionally shut ours down. I think we hit 47,000, something like that, and we intentionally shut it down just right there because we didn't want to violate, anything and have to refund anybody or anything like that. But there were really no challenges with the crowdfunding that I remember, other than it's just a second job. If you guys have ever crowdfunded anything, like you have to continuously, I call it crowd begging. Like you just have to crowd beg. You just have
That's
to
kind of true.
you have to keep pestering people. You have to keep reminding people it's out there. Facebook is determined to shut down any hyperlink that takes you away from Facebook. So if you're posting the link on Facebook, it's going to get flushed by the algorithm. Like you have to work around all this stuff, and it really becomes a second job. Like we're trying to raise money to make a movie, but we also now have to be social media experts and algorithm experts just to keep it in front of people. And kind of keep the momentum going. So that's really the biggest challenge, and also provide updates. By the way, you have to kick out updates, show people what their money's going toward, right? You don't just want to suck up the money and then they don't hear from you. And it took us 2 years to make this movie, right? So we, if I give my money to somebody and, I want to know what they're doing with it. And if it takes 2 years, I want updates along the way. So I know that my money went to, something good. So it really just becomes another full-time job, and John Broughton did a lot of the work with the updates, and he had some help on his side. I didn't want anything to do with it. I said, let me just focus on the movie. I've got enough to do. I don't want to have to do, crowdfunding stuff too. But yeah, it can be intense.
For sure.
I bet. Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. Like you guys did a good job with the updates. I feel like I saw them pretty often, like following the social pages and everything. But I mean, even just like from our small perspective of like having a podcast, like we're like, well, let's start a podcast because it's fun to talk Star Trek with people. But like, yeah, you got to like promote it. You got to like try to make these connections and update your social pages. I'm like, it's a lot. It's kind of a lot of work sometimes.
Yep, it is. And
Yeah.
and we're all slaves to the algorithm, right?
Right.
And the algorithm, you just got to keep churning stuff out over and over and over and over again. You can't put something out every 3 years and then hope that, followers or whoever are still going to be around for it. So yeah, it's interesting times in which we live now, right?
It is. Yeah. But you got to balance it out with having fun. Like if you're having fun doing what you're doing, I guess you do some of that too. Right.
For sure.
But one of my last things I wanted to ask, just kind of about a theme question for you. So Star Trek, like fans all over the place have always talk about like the spirit of Star Trek, like when watching new iterations and everything, and what that means to them. Means different things to people depending on who you ask. But regardless, there's generally a very strong tie between Star Trek and like, that certain values, like finding common ground amongst differences, the, infinite diversity, infinite combinations, all of those kinds of values, like moving the needle forward in different ways. What kind of a spirit or value would you want people to like take from your iteration of Star Trek?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. You threw a curveball at me. I thought you were going to ask what I get out of Star Trek, but what do I think people will get out of that on Farragut? It comes back to what I said before, just the dedication and loyalty to your friends and your shipmates. And, people say it all the time. They would do anything for their family, right? I mean, then do it. Do anything for your family. I think that's really the thing with Farragut. I mean, it's such a tight knit group on screen and off screen, and there's really a lot of similarities between how these characters have evolved the same way the actors have evolved over the last 20 years. I mean, it's a very tight knit group that moves as a single unit, really. So I don't know. I guess maybe that's the closest I can come, is just that loyalty piece and just that. Make good, solid friendships that will last your whole life. That's a lot more valuable in my opinion than, a lot of fleeting relationships that last, 2 or 3 weeks or 2 or 3 months or 2 or 3 years. Some relationships will last your whole life. And I don't know, maybe that's the subtext of Farragut Forward.
Love
It's a
that.
good one.
Yeah. That humanist kind of connection, right? Yeah, that's great.
Connection.
Well, that's pretty much what we have for you. But I thought of one question as we were talking when we were talking about DVD extras. I don't know what the guidelines are, but would there ever be a consideration to do like some sort of like physical release, like as like a donate, like, oh, you could donate money and you get like a Blu-ray version of Farragut Forward? I've seen some fan films do that in the past. Not always. I'm sure that's really complicated. But you guys ever talk about that?
I would love to. It is specifically forbidden in the guidelines.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what number it is. It's down the list somewhere. It's
Yeah.
it's not number one, but yeah, somewhere on that list it says no physical media at all.
I see.
Jeez.
Yeah, and I know the Starship Farragut guys, before that rule came out, guideline, not a rule. Before that guideline came out, Starship Farragut released all their stuff on DVD. I've got a stack of them somewhere.
Yeah.
So all the kind of the legacy Starship Farragut stuff, all that's out on DVD. But yeah, once the guidelines came out, and again, I mentioned before, we knew we were pushing our luck with one of those being the duration, and we weren't going to push our luck with all of them, So
for sure,
yeah. So physical release probably a no. But all those things you would find on a DVD, you can catch on YouTube now.
It's all there, right?
All there. Yeah. You don't have to get up off your couch to put the disc in. You can just use the remote. So.
All right.
Joe's a big physical media collector.
Oh, I am. Yeah.
So
huge. I was like, can I put this on my shelf next to my other Star Treks?
Yeah. I've got a ton of I've not bought physical media in a while, but I still have everything I've ever bought. Right. So I've got physical media from way back. And just in the last 2 weeks, like my girlfriend and I have sat down on the couch to resume a show that we've been watching. This has happened twice now, and twice in 2 weeks. It's gone. And I'm like,
oh, yeah.
You're kidding me. So, and one of those shows was Fringe, if you remember Fringe.
Fringe is great. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was streaming on Max, and we got into like season 2, just watching it every now and then. And it's like, all right, let's get back to Fringe. Gone. So now I've got to go, dig through shoeboxes to find my DVDs of Fringe from 10 years ago or whatever. And it happened with another show too. So yeah, I might have to reinvest in physical media.
Yeah. That's where it's at. I mean, I feel the same way. Like, oh, this show, like some of the shows that I feel like I liked, I feel like there's one. Oh yeah, I was watching the show Raised by Wolves on Max, and they just like gone. Like they just cut it from the like platform. Like where are they showing it now? Yeah, like some of these great shows that are like interesting or ambitious. It's like they're just going to cut it for whatever reason.
Yeah, and Disney. Yeah. The other show was the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
Oh, that's not in there anymore, is it?
Killed it. No, the movies are still there. All the Indiana Jones movies are there. And I don't know if it's licensing or I don't know what the deal is, but
yeah,
gone. But apparently they said somebody like remastered it on YouTube, and actually YouTube is now the best place to watch that. And quick plug for Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. Like that's the best that World War I has ever looked in a TV show. I mean, that is those World War I episodes of Indiana Jones. That's right up there with like Saving Private Ryan. And I mean, those are some seriously good TV episodes.
Dang.
Yeah, really, really good TV episodes. But just don't look for it on Disney because it's not there. So
go to YouTube. Well, thank you so much. This was amazing to chat with you. I knew like once we saw the film, I was like, we gotta get these guys on the podcast somehow and like just chat Star Trek,
Yeah, no, happy to. Yeah, happy to. And feel free to grab John. He can come on, talk about the sequel and all the great stuff they're doing there. I know he's neck deep into filming that stuff now. I've got a break. Like that's all I wanted after Farragut Forward wrapped up. I just wanted a break. So I'm still enjoying my vacation. I told John he was crazy to jump right back into making another one. And I don't know where he got the energy to jump right back into making another one. I couldn't do it. Honestly, I needed to unplug for a while because that was a busy 2 years. So.
Well, a well-deserved break, and congratulations and well done.
Thank you.
Film.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Is there anything else just real quick before we close out that you'd want to like plug of like people should look for of like any other work that you got coming out or any, I'm supposed to follow Chaotica Studios on all the social sites, right? But
yeah, for sure. Definitely Chaotica Studios. Catch us YouTube, Instagram, Facebook primarily. Check out The Oath. It's our Batman fan film. You mentioned it at the top of the show. Super proud of it. It's now at, I think, 1.1 million views. So it kind of went viral right under our noses there. And we're super, super proud of that movie. It's still winning some awards. We just got notified last night. Jerry Morgan, who's the lead, The lead actor just got nominated for Best Actor at the Los Angeles Fan Film Awards. So we just heard that news last night. So for a movie that's been out a couple years, it's still, picking up some nominations and wins. And it's on YouTube. It's another fan film. So definitely check out The Oath on YouTube. I got a few things in pre-production right now that we're looking at potentially shooting. I about said early next year, but it already is next year. We're looking at shooting some stuff maybe in the late spring this year. I want to get back to kind of my roots as a horror guy, and I want to get back to maybe a little story about a private investigator who stumbles onto a case and finds things might be a little more paranormal than what he first expected. So more to come on that one. I'll leave it.
I like it. We're also big horror fans, so looking forward to that.
Nice. Yeah. Stay tuned.
All right. Thank you again to Johnny for taking the time to chat with us. That was a great time.
Super fun.
And thank you all for listening to our episode today. Remember, you can find us at DS Love Pod on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. Give us a follow if you like what you hear. And if you really like what you hear, rate and review wherever you're listening. And again, tune in next month for our dive into the Section 31 film. Until then, love long and prosper.